Former BYU offensive coordinator Jeff Grimes was fond of calling the offensive line, quote, the tip of the spear, unquote, when it came to their importance for an offense. Well, the man who is now the point man of said tip of the spear is our guest on today's show, and he's got a pretty unique backstory. There's no doubt about it.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 13-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider, your host here on Locked On Cougars. And as always, thank you for making it your first listen of the day. All right, coming up on today's show, we're going to talk offensive line. Now, this is one of those editions that I have pre-recorded in the event and I had something come up, and that's what's happened. So you are going to hear coming up from BYU offensive lineman Bruce Mitchell. Now, incredible backstory. Many of you, I think, know it. If you don't, this is a man who came out of South Summit High School up in the Camas area in northeastern Utah, played 2A football. Now, there's not very many guys who come out of 2A football that play Division I, let alone Power 4 football, but Bruce was a man amongst boys, really dominated that level of football, and BYU saw him as potentially a defensive tackle of the future. Well, he comes to BYU after a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, kind of bided his time as a defensive tackle, hoping to really get a look, had a couple of opportunities to see what he could do for BYU on that D-line, but then when Jay Hill came in as BYU's defensive coordinator, he's got a pretty keen eye, speaking of Coach Hill, for guys that may be candidates to move positions and moves that he feels like will be beneficial for both him and the player involved. Well, he saw Bruce Mitchell's talent and said, hey, you know what? This is a guy who may be better served playing on the offensive line. And to use the expression, Bruce took to the offensive line like a duck takes to water. And now he had played some O-line during his high school career, as I understand it, at South Summit High School. So that obviously gave him a little bit of a leg up. But mind you, this is a guy who is stepping in for one of our favorites here on this podcast, Connor Pay. Bruce was the starting center all through spring camp, had filled in at that position last year when Connor went down due to injury, and he hadn't played offensive line in 3, maybe 4 years. Has an incredible backstory. I had a chance to catch up with him as spring camp was wrapping up at the tail end of March, early April. So some of the stuff in this may be a little bit dated, some topics about Jake Retzloff and the like, but the intel that he talks about how he's trying to improve as the guy who's going to be calling out a lot of the calls for this offensive line. It's an important position, a critical position for success of BYU as a football program. Well, Bruce has stepped right into that role. And considering you have seen guys like Tijon Karoma, James Empey, Connor Pay, who have all gotten professional opportunities from the center position, well, Bruce Mitchell's got a lot to uphold and a tradition and a legacy that he's got to step into as well as BYU starting center. But he's not afraid of that weight, I think, being heaped upon his shoulders. So here you go. That conversation I had with Bruce as spring camp wrapped up right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.
Taking over for a guy who's a multi-year starter in Connor Pay, what has your mindset been during spring camp as you take over that center spot?
Honestly, I've been trying to get better. Last year, I was kind of just thrown into center. Mm-hmm. We had Sonny and Connor go down, so it's like, okay, you can snap the ball, get in there. And so you don't really have time to learn the position and all the ins and outs of it. So going into this spring, I just really wanted to fine-tune some things. Mm-hmm. You know, my pass set, my footwork. Still have some work to go, but I was very happy with this spring and how I got better. Mm-hmm. And, you know, our D-line helps us get better, and our defense is complicated, so it helps an offensive line, and especially center out. You know, it's like taking the hardest exam you can. Right? I guess that's one way to look at it. It's like the hardest test you're going to get, and then on game day it gets a little easier.
Now, you're still a relative newcomer to playing offensive line at the collegiate level. Like, where have you made the most strides in your mind? Is it in pass blocking, run blocking? Where have you made the most strides in your opinion?
Man, I feel like it's funny you asked that question. I haven't really thought about that because last spring was my first spring at offensive line. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, it'd be funny to compare the film of last spring versus this year and what a year can do. Man, I've gone, not like to toot my own horn, but I've got a lot better in terms of footwork and the run blocking. And, I mean, pass blocking was so weird at first because you're moving backwards. It seems like it goes against everything that you're supposed to be doing in football. You're backing up while somebody's running full speed at you.
You're
right?
retreating. It's not a thing. Yeah,
it's not a natural thing to be doing. So I got a little comfortable in that, and obviously I still got to get better at both, and I will as the summer comes and as we go into fall camp. But man, it's hard just to pinpoint one area I've just gotten a little bit better at. I've gotten a lot better at a lot of things, at least hopefully. I feel like I have.
Now, as a center, obviously you're communicating down that line.
Right.
It's important you have your reads on point. What's that process been like? And I guess extending that out, what has TJ Woods meant in helping you learn that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it went to last year when I got thrown in there. Excuse me. Connor helped me out a lot with that last season. He loves this team. He wanted us to win. I think it hurt him a lot to be out for 4 games in his senior season. So he's doing everything he could to make sure we could win. And, he helped me out a lot with the points and understanding the offense. And same with Coach Woods. I think he understood that before me, he had a guy who was a 40-game starter. And he's helped me out. He's went into a little more details about the points and the protections. And, he slowed it down a little bit for me, but I feel really comfortable in the offense coming to the end of spring, and we'll be able to hit the ground running come fall.
Now, this offensive line, a lot of people looking at maybe it's a little bit of a rebuild with both tackles leaving, Connor leaving. I think a lot of people also look at it as maybe just a retooling with some of the guys like you got experience last year. What's your mindset been? What's the offensive line's mindset been this spring?
Yeah, Obviously, we didn't have all of our offensive line this spring. We had some people. We had Andrew out with a foot injury and Waylon out with elbow surgery. So not 100% sure what our offensive line looks like, but we have a lot of guys that have a lot of game experience, a lot of game snaps underneath their belt. I mean, we got 7 guys who could probably be starters, So I think that'll help us in terms of you said not rebuilding, but retooling. Yeah, that's how I look at it. So we got a lot of experience still in retooling this offensive line and getting people in the position where they can be the most successful. And then we're going to have depth. Obviously, we needed depth last year, and they were probably a little nervous when I was trotting out there against Kansas State. But we have depth that I think all the coaches are really comfortable with this year and this time around.
Well, I'll pay you a compliment that I actually heard last year. So after you played that Kansas State game, you were a relative unknown. I had somebody invoke the name Blake Freeland for your performance.
I'll take it.
When he played as a freshman at tackle against a nationally ranked Boise State team, people were like, what's this going to go like?
Right.
And he passed with essentially flying colors. And I had somebody say, Bruce did essentially what Blake did in his first start, and they were really, really impressed with what you accomplished. So.
I haven't heard that one, but that's high praise. Blake's obviously an amazing offensive lineman, and he's getting paid a lot of money to block, so I'll take that.
Now, Connor, I know this just from background, he gave you guys straight up tests, like we're talking like written tests, like have you guys this every week. What's the chances that Bruce Mitchell is going to bring those tests around for the other offensive linemen?
I'm just grateful Connor made the test because it's easy for me to hand out now. We've actually taken the test. It's tweaked a little bit. But yeah, I'm happy he made that test and that written test. Him and Coach Woods sat down and made it, and we're still handing out the same test.
Okay.
It covers everything you need to know. And, yeah, we're going to be handing that out again this summer and before fall camp. We're going to be going over that exact same test. Like, this offense hasn't changed since last year. The same things that are on that are going to be on it again this season.
What's the rest of spring and summer going to look like for Bruce Mitchell?
I don't have any big plans made. We just got our summer conditioning, working out. We get a little downtime this spring, which I'm looking forward to. Probably do a little fishing, a little hunting if I can. Hopefully I'll be able to make it out to some of my wife's track meets. But yeah, no major plans right now, just hanging out. It's weird to say because it's only April, but I'm really excited for this football season, so I'm sure I'll be spending lots of time in the film room trying to dial everything up and lots of time on the field, and hopefully with the other offensive linemen working on that chemistry and just becoming better as a unit.
Perfect. Well, Bruce, thanks for the time, man.
Awesome. Thank you, Jake.
There you go, Bruce Mitchell, BYU offensive lineman. A big thank you to him for taking the time to join us here on the podcast. All right, we will be back with a full edition soon enough, but thank you for understanding. It's that time of year when things go crazy, schedule gets a little bit bogged down. It's the summertime, but nonetheless, appreciate every single one of you for being with us. And obviously, once again, a big thank you to Bruce for taking the time and looking forward to seeing what he can do with the newly revamped BYU offensive line. There are stalwarts like Waylon Lapuahu who return, also Austin Leusa, but a guy like Bruce, who played a critical role last year, takes on an even more important role this year as a true full-time starter. How will he meld with the other guys along that offensive line? How will the new tackles, guys like Isaiah Jota and Andrew Gentry, get along with him? Well, the hope is very, very well, because they will be critical to any and all success that BYU has along the offensive line, and more importantly, just as an offense overall. So, as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars a part of your day. Thank you for making it your first listen of the day. And once again, as always, thank you for being an everydayer right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.